better than gold. That's John DeLorean. Hotel room near LAX, October 19, 1982. Hidden FBI camera rolling. He's just opened a suitcase containing 55 pounds of cocaine. Bricks of it. Wrapped in cellophane. Bone white. He raises a champagne glass. To a lot of success for everyone. The door opens. Agent Jerry West walks in. "Hi, John. I'm Jerry West from the FBI. You're under arrest." 2 years later, that same man walks out of a federal courthouse in Los Angeles. Not guilty. Entrapment defense, free. His company doesn't get the same verdict. And here's the part that nobody on YouTube is telling you straight. The cocaine bust wasn't the story. The cocaine bust was the autopsy. The patient was already dead by the time the FBI showed up. Not killed by drugs. Killed by 130 horsepower, a French committee engine, and a British government that was using a sports car as counterterrorism policy. If you've heard the DeLorean story before, you've probably heard about half of it. I went down this rabbit hole for about 3 weeks last fall, sitting with the FBI tape transcripts, the engineering specs, and a witness almost nobody mentions by name. What I found is messier than the legend and a lot more interesting. Stick with me, this one's worth it. 2 stories, hold both in your head. Story A is a car. Story B is a phone call. They look like they have nothing to do with each other. They collide harder than you'd think. Car first, the DMC-12. Designed by Giorgetto Giugiaro, the Italian who drew the original Volkswagen Golf and the Lotus Esprit. Body engineering by Lotus, contracted out by Colin Chapman himself. Stainless steel skin so the thing wouldn't need painting. Gull-wing doors with gas struts. Built in a factory in Dunmurry on the southwest edge of Belfast. And here's the first thing that should make you raise an eyebrow. The British government basically gave John DeLorean that factory for free, plus around $120 million in grants, equity investment, and loan guarantees, which in 1981 dollars works out to something between $400 and $500 million in today's money, depending on whose CPI calculator you trust. Why? Because Northern Ireland was on fire. The Troubles had been killing people for 13 years. Catholic and Protestant unemployment in West Belfast was running near 50%. Roy Mason, the Labour Secretary of State for Northern Ireland in 1978, signed the deal in 46 days, which is bureaucratic warp speed. The pitch was peace through employment. Hire 2,500 workers, half Catholic, half Protestant, give them entrances on opposite ends of the building so they don't have to mix on the way in, and maybe the bombs slow down. That's the actual rationale. On paper, it's in the British Department of Trade and Industry archives, and there's a 2025 academic monograph at UK DIS that pulls the original master agreement, signed July 28, 1978, equity investment of £17,757,000, grants of £18,718,000, plus another $16 million in loans and employment grants. So you've got a luxury sports car being built as counterterrorism policy by workers who'd never built a car, using engineering from Lotus, powered by an engine designed by a French committee of 3 rival automakers. What could possibly go wrong? Now the engine, because this is where the math turns ugly. The PRV V6 stands for Peugeot, Renault, Volvo. It was a compromise unit designed by 3 companies that didn't really like each other, originally for cars that were nothing like the DMC-12. After the engineers added a catalytic converter to meet American emissions standards, the engine in your DeLorean made 130 horsepower at 5,500 revolutions per minute. Curb weight, 2,712 pounds. Road and track tested 1 in 1981. 0 to 60 in 10.5 seconds. Top speed, 109 miles an hour. Listen to those numbers and tell me they don't hurt. A 1981 base Camaro V6, which you could buy for about $7,500, was almost as quick. A 1981 Chevrolet Corvette, $16,000, was substantially faster. The DeLorean cost $25,000. That's the math problem the entire rest of this story revolves around. You've got a car that looks like a spaceship and drives like a Volvo, priced like a Porsche, in a recession, against competitors that are quicker and cheaper. By February of 1982, more than half of the 7,000 DeLoreans built that year are sitting unsold on dealer lots from Phoenix to Cleveland to Tampa. The Dunmurry factory goes into receivership. DMC is $175 million in debt. DeLorean is calling everybody he can think of. Saudi investors, Texas oilmen, banks in Beirut. Nobody's writing the check. Which brings us to the phone call. July 11, 1982. Marriott Hotel, Newport Beach, California. John DeLorean sits down across a coffee table from a man named James Timothy Hoffman. They know each other casually, the way two parents at a private school know each other. Their kids attend the same elementary in Palma Valley, San Diego County. Hoffman has a thin mustache and the soft, easy voice of a guy who has done time, which he has. What John DeLorean does not know, sitting there in that hotel restaurant, is that Hoffman is, at this exact moment, an FBI confidential informant working off his own 1981 federal cocaine trafficking charge. The deal he's chasing with the Bureau is simple. Bring them a bigger fish, walk free. And here is the legally important fact, the fact that ends up winning this whole case 2 years later. Hoffman called DeLorean, not the other way around. Hoffman picked up the phone, dialed John DeLorean's office in New York, and pitched the meeting. Hold that detail. We're coming back to it. Pause for a second. I want you to picture the showroom. Doesn't matter which one. Phoenix in 81, a dealership off East Camelback Road, bright fluorescent lights, beige carpet, the smell of new vinyl. The DeLorean is on a slow rotating platform lit from underneath. You walk up, you touch the brushed stainless steel. It's cold. It's strange. Feels like running your fingers across the side of a refrigerator that just landed from another planet. You sit in the driver's seat. The gull wing closes over your head with a pneumatic hiss. The interior is all gray leather and sharp angles, and there is, weirdly, almost no headroom unless you're under 5'11". You turn the key. The PRV V6 settles into a rough idle behind your shoulder. It sounds like a Volvo because it basically is. You drive it off the lot. You stop at a stoplight on Camelback. You realize slowly that the kid in the Honda Accord next to you just got off the line faster than you did. Something inside you breaks a little, because the brochure promised a spaceship, and what you bought was a Volvo wearing a costume. That feeling, multiplied by every disappointed buyer in 1981 and 1982. That is why John DeLorean was sitting in that hotel room. The car couldn't earn its way out of the hole the car had dug. This is where it all crashes together. FBI tape transcripts from October 1982 run to hundreds of pages. They're public record. You can pull them through federal court archives. I sat with about 120 of them last fall, and the picture that emerges is messier than the prosecution's headline soundbite. DeLorean does say things on tape that look catastrophic. He inspects the cocaine. He says, better than gold. He toasts the deal. The FBI had him cold on the surface. So how did he walk? This is the part nobody on YouTube tells you. The defense, led by an attorney named Howard Weitzman, called exactly one witness to the stand. Her name was Carol Winkler. She was John DeLorean's secretary in his New York office. Weitzman entered Carol Winkler's phone log into evidence. The log showed in her own handwriting, in felt-tip pen, the exact time and date of every call between Hoffman and DeLorean over the previous 18 months, page by page, day by day. The first call about the deal, Hoffman to DeLorean. Not DeLorean to Hoffman. Every initiating contact in the relationship was Hoffman calling DeLorean. The FBI had built its entire case on the claim that DeLorean was the initiator. Carol Winkler's call log, the kind of log every executive secretary in 1982 New York kept, blew that up. The jury watched the FBI surveillance video for weeks. Suitcase, toast, the whole thing. And then they listened to Weitzman walk through Carol Winkler's notebook. Verdict came back in 5 days. Not guilty. August 16, 1984. The jury foreman, in a post-trial interview I found on a microfilm scan of the Los Angeles Times, said the panel believed DeLorean was probably guilty of the act, but that the FBI had created the crime in order to solve it. That is the legal definition of entrapment. Carol Winkler, a secretary nobody remembers by name, with a felt-tip pen and a steno book, won a federal trial that the entire United States Department of Justice was confident they could not lose. And here's the fallibility moment, because I had this story wrong for a long time. I used to tell it the way most YouTube videos tell it. Brilliant car guy goes desperate, makes one bad decision, gets unlucky. That's not what happened. What happened is the engineering had been a slow-motion failure since 1976. The British investment had been a political expediency since 1978. By July of 1982, when Hoffman picked up the phone, DeLorean Motor Company was already dead. The cocaine sting wasn't the cause of death. It was the funeral. And to be clear, because YouTube's policy framework requires the context, the cocaine trade in 1982 killed an enormous number of Americans. The federal investigation that swept up DeLorean was part of a wider enforcement push responding to a real public health crisis. Nobody comes out of this story clean. Not the FBI for letting an informant initiate a deal with a man who had no prior record. Not DeLorean for sitting in that room. Not the British government for funding an operation it knew was not viable by 1980. not the press for turning the perp walk into a lifestyle segment. Here's where I want your help. I've told you my read. Engineering failure first, financial failure second, FBI sting third, the car killed the man, and then the FBI got the credit. Carol Winkler, a secretary nobody remembers with a felt-tip pen and a steno book, won the trial. The British taxpayers ate the loss, and John DeLorean spent the next 20 years getting sued, refusing to write a memoir that was honest and dying in 2005 in New Jersey of a stroke. Broke, bitter, mostly forgotten. I think the consensus story, the one where he got desperate and made a tragic mistake, is the comforting version. The truer version is sadder. He got desperate because the math had been wrong since 1976, and the cocaine deal was a man already underwater reaching for the only rope he could see, even when the rope had a federal informant attached to it. I'm probably wrong about something in here. Tell me what. Drop your read in the comments. Was DeLorean a victim of entrapment or a guilty man who got lucky on a technicality? Was the British government's $120 million piece-through-cars gambit naive or just cynical? And one question I genuinely cannot answer, that I've been chewing on for weeks, that I want you to argue about below. If the engine had made 200 horsepower instead of 130, does any of this happen? I'll be in the comments for the next 48 hours. Tell me where I got it wrong.